got in here and I forgot to do it. All right, so this chapter is mainly about using some animal intake data from a shelter to make gauge charts, and she uses it with an app called ggforce. So the learning objectives are essentially to create those that gauge chart using different plot elements and a new geom function, how to set aspect ratios and coordinate systems to change the look of the chart, and not analyzing the color choices to make sure they're accessible to people with color blindness. So the overview of the chapter is pretty similar to the other chapters we've covered so far. She has an exploratory section where she's just looking at the data and making a decision, and then she goes into actually preparing the plot and then doing the data wrangling and setting the basic plot up before doing some stylistic changes. And then the final section is just about tweaking the way it looks to get it nicer and exactly how she wanted. So she said this was covered in a previous chapter. I don't remember seeing it, but I included the code here of how to get the colorblind R package. You have to use those first three lines that are commented out to install the package and the dependencies from GitHub, and then you install the colorblind R package, and these are just the other packages she uses that are listed in the book. So in the exploratory work, like we said, she covers two things. It's really just some basic data exploration, and then she has her exploratory sketches that she always includes when she's choosing a chart to land on. So the first thing she does is create a bar graph, a horizontal bar graph about the different intakes for the different animals. She notes that dog and cat are like dominating in terms of frequency of being surrendered at the shelters, with some other categories being sprinkled in there. Then she gives us this. I I want to call it a histogram. I'm not 100% sure if that's the right term, or more like a time series thing, seeing the number of surrendered animals per day. We see some spikes, we see some dips mainly around uh 29 the tail end of 2019 to like 2023, 2022. And then finally she creates a heat map with the year and then the animal type and the frequency of surrender. And again, you can see pretty consistently that dog and cats were almost always in those darker hues, out and almost all of them had that dip in those 2 years except for a few specific animal categories. Hmm. I don't know why this didn't work. Let me share this screen instead. Can you still see this? Oh, do you see the sketch?
Oh, yes, I can see the sketch. I think you are sharing the screen, so it's all good.
Okay. All right. So she ends up landing on a gauge chart, and she ends up saying how she wants it essentially to be a stack chart where the one on top is the most recent data, which is 2023, and then the one on the bottom is 2017. I believe it's here. Let me go back. I believe it's here where she makes the decision to just limit the data to 2017 and 2023 in hopes of highlighting where it started and where it ended up and creating that sort of wow factor. Sh- She also does some more data manipulation to include other animal types into the other categories, some of them that had less higher counts that compared to the other groups that she chose to land on. So this is the script for that with her initial cleaning of the data, and then this is just the head of the data and what it ends up looking like. What I didn't understand, and I still don't completely understand 100%. So from what I could gather and how I read the text, I'm not sure if my interpretation is wrong. It seems like she set the ceiling to the maximum number of intakes for the animal with the highest number of intakes. So it ends up being cat at 2281, and she sets the ceiling for the gauge charge at 2500. I didn't understand that decision, Um, because then it makes it so that none of the gauge charts are really at 100%. It's just comparing to the max. I don't understand why she didn't just set the max of each gauge chart to whatever the ceiling was for that specific animal type, since that's something that is easy enough to do with a little more like wrangling and manipulation. Um, I tried to keep my eyes open to see if she explains that decision later on in the chapter, but as far as I can tell, I didn't really see an explanation for that. So yeah, I'm not sure what that is. Why she chose that. It still doesn't make 100. It still doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's the decision she made, and the charts end up looking really nice. I don't know if you got a chance to read the chapter or not, but did is that interpretation correct? Am I missing something?
I actually didn't go through the chapter before. As you were speaking, I was trying to look in the book what was the reasoning behind that. Yeah, but unfortunately, I was not able to go through it before the book club.
Okay, yeah. I mean, she she does admit that it's a pretty arbitrary decision, and we just need to set some sort of limit since there's no natural upper limit because we don't know the capacity of the shelter. I just don't know why she set that limit to the max number of intakes for animal type. That's the part that's confusing me. Um, but again, the charts end up looking really nice. She mentioned it was arbitrary, and I'm sure in a different setting she'd probably make a different choice. Um, but let's move on. So the bulk of the data wrangling happens in this next chunk of code where she's really manipulating the data and she's taking it from the original data frame where each animal type had an observation for a year. Um, she's spreading that so that instead of it being per year, it's an observation for how much progress is being made towards the upper limit and how much progress is missing. So instead of being 2017, 2023 animal and then the count, it's now the animal progress being made and then two additional columns for year. So 2017, 2023. And then the next column will be same animal how much progress is missing towards the ceiling or whatever their max was in 2023, and then the years as well again. And then I believe there's a head here. Yep. So we have the value and no value. Those are two distinct categories they could go in. And then the year, and then these, the Y max 2017 and 2023. Let me see. I can't really see my note. Um So those are just the end value for the gauge charts. So she just calculates the maximum of what it's supposed to be. And then for the no value, it's just one because we know that at the end of the day it's gonna be 100%. And then the bar is gonna be one minus whatever the value is for the missing. Um, so here she's setting the start values and changing the data. I believe this is where she's setting the arcs for the Oh no, this is where she's setting the polar coordinates for the gauge charts and making it so that they actually bend and match a circle. And that's how you do it with Sunbridge charts and gauge charts and donut charts and stuff and things like that. And then this is setting the actual start values for where the gauge charts are going to start. So in it for the minimum, which is going to be 2017, she's taking, let me check. Am I sharing? You said I am sharing my whole screen, right? Let me open my
Yeah.
notes. That's not it. I don't think that's it either. I think it's in positron.
Just close this.
Hmm? This is, if I'm remembering correctly, is just some big data manipulation to pull specific rows and slices of the data to set those as the starting points for the gauge chart. And then this is what the data set ends up looking like. So again, animal category, whether it's value, aka progress being made towards goal, or no value, which is the project progress missing. These are the actual values that will be plotted. That's how much is missing. This is the maximum. And then these are the minimum, which is essentially where they're going to be starting. All right, so this is where she actually produces the first chart from this is where she actually produces the first chart that she outlined in her exploratory sketch. This is just setting up the basic chart, geom arc bar, setting all the different arguments. That one's for the 2023 chart, which is the one that'll be on top. And then this one is for the inner chart, which is the one that'll be nested inside. And this is what it ends up looking like. We have it faceted by animal type. And then you have, again, 2023 on the top, 2017 in the bottom. And it ends up looking nice. She then goes on to do the stylistic changes. So the highlights of what she does, she produces a second one with some minor changes. She just changes some of the bolding in the section or removes some of the lines in the sectioning. She changes the color of the bars and the background as well. She tests and simulates how it's going to look for people with different types of color blindness, sets fonts and defines, the different text that's going to go on the final chart. And then the final thing she does is changes the theme of the chart and puts it all together. So this is the code for the second gauge chart, and it's basically one without the black outlines on the sections. This is what it ends up looking like. And then here she's just setting the color and the font changes. She chooses Ubuntu as the font, and then she she sets some variables with the different colors she's planning on using. So this is the third chart, I believe, and this is the one with the adjusted colors. We could see the changes to the primary color. The gray for the progress missing is one that matches closer to the background. And then this is what it looks like when it's simulated with different types of color blindness. I believe she also makes a note of doing this and choosing colors that have enough differentiation where no matter where they land on this, it's still easy to tell what is what. Essentially, you can still tell without the numbers and with little labels that there's two different categories. And then this is where she denoted what the different text is going to be and then the different parameters for the text. She added labels for the years, and then she created the actual chart and added all of that. It looks a little funny now. I think the last one ends up looking better because she removes the labels on the X and Y axis, and I believe she also removes the legend. So this is one with the change theme, and it's the same theme she uses in the other chapters, the theme void. If if you're looking for other themes, the theme Tuft, TUFTE is one I use a lot. It does a really good job of like removing all the extraneous non-data ink on charts. I think it's modeled by like Edward Tuft or something. It's great. And then this is the final chart with some improved styling. And this is what it ends up looking like. She removes the labels, she removes the X and Y axis labels, adds the year. I thought, oh, she does remove the legend in the final one, but you can see all the different text, the title, the subtitle, no legend, and that's the final chart we end up having. It looks very nice, very clean. Um, Again, still don't understand why she didn't make it the natural limit, the 2023 value for each animal type. I ag- I again maybe I'm just misreading that or am not am not understanding or missed something in the chapter when I was going through it, but it does seem like she just picked whatever the max was. But outside of that, it's a very clean chart, looks good. It's definitely one that I think I'm gonna try using in my day to day when putting data together for folks. They,
Engage. It's nice that she did it, but I don't think it. I've never had a situation where I thought I want to use like a gauge kind of chat.
yeah, and I've never had that situation either, but I feel like especially for stakeholders, that format I think is something they would really understand. If you think of like
Mm.
the first thing that comes to my mind is like, you know, experience gain in like a video game where like you see the bar filling up little by little. So if there's a metric we're working towards and you present it as a gauge chart, and in Q1 it's at 25, and then at Q3 it's 68, instead of having two separate charts, we can have a gauge
Kind of.
chart.
I see what you
Yeah,
mean. I see
and
what you
then
mean.
and then have different notches or lines saying, okay, this was the value in Q1, this is where we were at Q2, this is Q3, that's our goal. So I do think for presenting data to stakeholders, especially data where it's a moving metric that we want to work towards, it'll be useful. I know I'm gonna end up trying it at some point and see what the feedback is from them.
Yeah, no, the example you made was too good. It may have convinced me. Thanks a lot, man. This was good. I'll probably go over the chapter since I was not able to go through it, just to mess around with the code as well.
If you want, drop your email. I put the changes into the repository. They just haven't been approved yet. So if you want, either shoot
Mm.
me a DM on the Slack or drop your email, and I can email you the code I have for it, and you could just have at it.
Hear me on Slack. That'll be
Okay,
easier.
sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. I think we have to stop, right?
I believe so. Let me see.